Here we have the next January 6th committee hearing, which will be July 12th, next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Washington. And as always, as I've mentioned in prior videos, these hearings are essentially an attempt to pin the blame where it belongs, namely with this guy. And so we can see this is going to be another one that will feature all kinds of information that the would-be wannabe fascist insurrectionist isn't going to like one bit. And so we can see that the chart here on the left being the moment when it will be starting, and odds are that if it starts a little later, it'll be Virgo. In fact, not even a matter of mentioning odds, it'll definitely be Virgo, because as it turns out, it takes almost 2 hours for this sign to change. So it's going to be Virgo rising for sure. And when we look at the positions of the planets, the ones that highlight the issue most intensely would be the continued presence of the Neptune over here in Pisces, which is placed there in his chart, squaring his sun and moon. And notice that the Venus on that day and that time at 23, very close to his sun, which ordinarily would be a pretty good transit, but not in this case, because what it's doing is it's triggering the Neptune transit and highlighting that formation in a way that is going to be uncomfortable in the realm of information, which is what Gemini is. And then we see that the transiting Saturn continues to be in the 24-25 degree range of Aquarius, 2409 to be precise in this case, still within range of opposing his Mars. But notice that in the actual chart for the hearing, it's in the 6th sign, which means it's going to correlate with what the supposed topic is. Groups like the Oath Keepers, the Three Percenters, the Proud Boys, etc., and what the connections are to Trump. And that's perfect imagery for Saturn and Aquarius in the 6th, which would be the idea of servants and helpers and those that were basically assisting his cause, groups, Aquarius, even though in his natal chart it actually goes to the 7th sign. But nevertheless, it's really well reflected in this chart, the chart for the moment. And then we see that, as before, the Pluto continues to be in a really compromising spot, continues to oppose his Venus, thereby highlighting society's opposition to what he did on that day and bringing up all the dirty laundry. And we're getting close now to the Jupiter station, which you see it there at 8. It's going to actually park in the 9th degree roughly, and that places it here, triggering the Access Hollywood T-square formed by Neptune, Eris, and Mercury. And it's of course very uncomfortable because it's bringing up legal information that he doesn't like, the 9th being his legal house. The 9th is also a place where information is published, information is made real to the public, and that is not the place you want Jupiter to be, triggering your most vulnerable planetary alignment. But of course, remember, the reason this is happening is because he did this. It's not because fate is out to get him. His fate is the result of his actions. Now, something else we see here is that the moon, the fast-moving moon on the day, they're in Capricorn, and so it's in his 6th, once again, of helpers, and at 3 degrees, it's not too far away from entering the Access Hollywood T as well, because it does that as soon as it reaches about 6 degrees. And so this tells you that the post-hearing or post-period of the hearing is going to be very uncomfortable for him, as he ponders what just happened in terms of the information that was released, which is exactly the point and is also entirely what he deserves, right? And beyond that, we notice that the Sun and Mercury are transiting in Cancer. And broadly speaking, first of all, the 12th is a place that he's not going to like pretty much ever, since he plays the 12th, always plays it to the criminal end. So what these planets are doing is essentially highlighting that and making things uncomfortable. You could tie them also to a square to where the Jupiter is, to essentially run interference on his, expansionary motives. But just being in the 12th is enough to make it quite problematic. And if you then project a little forward, knowing that this hearing is said to be 2 hours, but it could go a little over. So you could reach a situation where by 11:46, which is less than 2 hours, the ascendant will switch to Libra. And so then by 12:10 to 12:40, that would be an actual connection with these access Hollywood degrees. From Libra, it would reach the degrees of Neptune. But even if it doesn't, it's another indicator, much like the moon, that in the post hours, the post hearing hours, he's going to be extremely uncomfortable, because basically the ascendant crosses through there. In that case, it's not even the post hearing hours, it's the post hearing minutes, the 12:10 to 12:40. The moon will actually spend the rest of the day going through those access Hollywood degrees, making things really uncomfortable. And one final thing I'll say is that I didn't mention the Eris, but Eris is parked solidly now at 25 degrees, stationing in the same house as Jupiter, and it's in direct square to his Venus, and it's just grinding away, causing all kinds of trouble, namely especially in the form of women that have surfaced to do a lot of damage. That's the most direct interpretation of Eris, though you could also assign Eris the general notion of bringing about disruption, discord, chaos, which obviously he is facing in a big way. So, bottom line, there it is. I'm guessing this is going to be as fascinating as the previous ones and as damaging to the Mar-a-Lago cockroach as the previous ones as well, if not perhaps even more so.